The wine glass in my hand felt heavier than it should have, as I watched my wife Eliza work the room at our anniversary party. 20 years of marriage, and she was flirting with my best friend Simon like I wasn't even there. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Greg, you look like you're plotting someone's demise, Kira whispered beside me, her breath warm against my ear. She'd been my wife's best friend since college, but lately I'd caught her looking at me differently. Just observing, I muttered, taking another sip of the overpriced Cabernet. The upscale bar we'd rented for the occasion buzzed with conversation from Eliza's marketing colleagues and our mutual friends. Everyone seemed to be having a grand time except me. Eliza laughed too loudly at something Simon said, her hand lingering on his bicep. Simon Harlow, my college roommate, my supposed best friend, the guy who'd been my best man at this very anniversary we were celebrating. The irony tasted bitter. She's been different lately, Kira continued, her voice carefully neutral, more adventurous in her conversations at work. I turned to study Kira's face. At 40, she was still striking, auburn hair, sharp green eyes, and a figure that turned heads. Unlike my wife, she'd never married, claiming she was too picky. Right now, those green eyes held something that looked like sympathy. Adventurous how? I asked. Before Kira could answer, Eliza's voice cut through the ambient noise like a knife through silk. Everyone! Everyone! Can I have your attention, please? The room gradually quieted. My wife stood near the bar, one manicured hand resting on Simon's chest, the other holding her wine glass high. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, her black cocktail dress hugging curves she maintained religiously at the gym. She looked radiant, confident, and completely in control. I want to thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate Greg and me, she began, her marketing executive voice projecting effortlessly across the room. 20 years of marriage is quite an achievement these days. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. I felt my jaw tighten. But, Eliza continued, her smile widening, Greg and I have decided to embrace a more modern approach to our relationship. We're in an open relationship now. The silence that followed was deafening. Then came the gasps, the nervous laughter, the whispered conversations. I felt every eye in the room turn toward me, waiting for my reaction. Time seemed to slow. I could see the shock on faces I'd known for years. Eliza's work friends looked scandalized and thrilled. This would fuel office gossip for months. Simon's expression was a mixture of smugness and nervousness, and Kira was watching me with an intensity that made my pulse quicken. I set my wine glass down on the nearest table with deliberate calm. The room held its collective breath. As you wish, I said, my voice carrying clearly in the silence. Then I turned to Kira, who stood frozen beside me. Kira, would you like to have dinner with me tomorrow night? Somewhere nice, romantic. The color drained from Eliza's face. Simon choked on his drink, coughing violently, but Kira's smile was radiant. Finally, she said loud enough for everyone to hear. I thought you'd never ask. The room erupted in chaos. Conversations exploded around us, voices rising in excitement and shock. I could see Eliza pushing through the crowd toward me, her face a mask of fury and disbelief. Excuse me, I said to no one in particular, straightening my tie. I think I'll head home early. Big day tomorrow, apparently. I walked toward the exit, feeling lighter than I had in months. Behind me, I could hear Eliza's voice rising above the din, trying to regain control of the narrative she'd just lost. But I didn't look back. The cool Boston air hit my face as I stepped outside, and I allowed myself a small smile. If Eliza wanted to play games, I'd show her how the game was really played. After all, I'd been watching, learning, and planning for longer than she knew. My phone buzzed with a text from Ben. my IT colleague who'd helped me set up our home security system. Dude, what just happened? Twitter is blowing up with DACA open marriage party. I typed back, Phase 1 complete. Time for Phase 2. As I walked to my car, I could see through the bar's windows that the party was still in full swing. Eliza was gesticulating wildly, probably trying to explain or control the damage. Simon looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor, but the real show was just beginning. I drove home through the quiet suburban streets, my mind racing despite my outward calm. Our house, a colonial-style home in one of Boston's better suburbs, sat dark except for the porch light. 20 years of mortgage payments, joint decisions, and shared dreams. Now it felt like a crime scene waiting to be investigated. The first thing I did was pour myself a real drink. Not the overpriced wine from the party, but a proper whiskey from the bottle I kept in my home office. The second thing I did was call Ben. Jesus, Greg, what the hell happened tonight? Ben's voice crackled through my phone. My wife just called me from the party. She said Eliza announced you guys are in an open relationship, and then you asked out Kira in front of everyone? Something like that, I said, settling into my leather chair. Ben, I need that favor we discussed last week. There was a pause. Ben Martinez was my closest friend at the tech company where I worked as a systems manager. He was also the kind of guy who could make computers do things they weren't supposed to do, not illegally, just creatively. The cloud backup access? He asked quietly. Yeah, Eliza's been acting strange for months. Tonight confirmed my suspicions, but I need proof. Greg, are you sure about this? Once you know something, you can't unknow it. I took a long sip of whiskey. I'm sure. 30 minutes later, Ben was at my door with his laptop bag. He looked nervous. A thin guy with prematurely gray hair and thick glasses. He wasn't built for drama. But he was loyal, and he owed me for covering for him when his divorce had nearly cost him his job. This feels wrong, he muttered, as he set up his equipment on my dining room table. What feels wrong is my wife announcing our open relationship without discussing it with me first, I replied. What feels wrong is her flirting with my best friend in front of 50 people. Ben's fingers flew over the keyboard. Okay, I'm in. Her cloud backup is... Jesus, Greg. There's a lot here. Photos, messages, documents going back years. Start with the messages. Focus on Simon's name. The first few were innocent enough. Work stuff, party planning, casual conversation. Then Ben found a folder labeled Personal, with a creation date from 18 months ago. Greg, maybe I should leave and let you... No, read them. Ben's voice grew quieter as he read. March 15th last year. Simon to Eliza. Can't stop thinking about last night. Greg has no idea how lucky he is. Eliza's response. He's too focused on work to notice anything. We should be more careful, though. My grip tightened on the whiskey glass. April 3rd, Ben continued. Eliza to Simon. Greg's working late again. Come over around 8. Park in the Hendersons' driveway like before. The Hendersons were our neighbors who traveled frequently for work. Their empty driveway had perfect sight lines to our back door, avoiding the front-facing security cameras I'd installed. How many messages are there? I asked. Ben scrolled through the folder. Hundreds. And, oh God, Greg, there are photos. Show me. The photos were tastefully shot, but unmistakably intimate. My wife and my best friend in my house, in my bed, in my kitchen. Dates and timestamps showed this had been going on for over a year. There's more, Ben said reluctantly. Group messages with her work friends. She's been telling them about her boring husband and her exciting friend for months. They've been encouraging her to make tonight's announcement. I set down my empty glass and walked to the window. The street was quiet, peaceful. Normal people living normal lives while mine imploded in high definition. Greg? Ben's voice was concerned. I'm fine, I said, and surprisingly I was. The betrayal hurt, but the clarity was almost refreshing. What else is in there? Financial stuff. She's been using the joint credit card for hotel rooms, expensive dinners, gifts, always with Simon. There's even a receipt for lingerie from last week, that black dress she wore tonight. The dress she'd worn to announce our open relationship was bought for another man. The irony was almost poetic. Ben, I need you to copy everything to a secure drive. Then I need you to help me with something else. What? I turned back to him, and he must have seen something in my expression because he shifted uncomfortably. If Eliza wants an open relationship, then that's what she'll get. But she's about to learn that the game has rules, and I've always been better at playing by the rules than she has. My phone buzzed with a text from Eliza. We need to talk. Where did you go? I typed back. Out with Kira, planning our date tomorrow. Don't wait up. Her response came immediately. This isn't what I meant, and you know it. Isn't it? I replied. You said open relationship. I'm just being open. The phone rang. Eliza calling. I let it go to voicemail. Phase 2? Ben asked. Phase 2, I confirmed. And Ben, this stays between us. He nodded, already copying files to an encrypted drive. What about Kira? Are you really going to drag her into this? I considered the question. Kira had looked genuinely happy when I asked her out. She'd been dropping hints for months, always finding excuses to touch my arm or laugh at my jokes. Maybe she'd been waiting for this opportunity as long as I'd been blind to what was happening under my own roof. Kira's a grown woman who can make her own choices, I said. Besides, I think she's been wanting to make those choices for a while now. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Simon. Dude, what the hell? Call me. I showed the message to Ben, who shook his head. Your best friend, huh? Former best friend, I corrected. And he's about to find out what happens when you betray someone who built his career on attention to detail and long-term planning. The files finished copying. Ben packed up his equipment, looking worried. Greg, whatever you're planning, be careful. Revenge has a way of consuming people. Don't worry, I said, walking him to the door. I'm not planning revenge. I'm planning justice. There's a difference. After Ben left, I sat in my home office surrounded by 20 years of memories. Photos of Eliza and me on vacations, at parties, celebrating promotions and anniversaries. All of it felt like evidence in a case I was just beginning to build. My phone rang again. Eliza. This time I answered. Where are you? She demanded, without preamble. Home. Where are you? I'm at Kira's. She's not here, Greg. Where is she really? I smiled. I have no idea. We're not joined at the hip, Eliza. That's the beauty of an open relationship, isn't it? Freedom. Stop being childish. You know what I meant. Tonight wasn't what? Permission for both of us to see other people? Because that's what open relationship means. Or did you think it only applied to you? Silence on the other end. We'll talk tomorrow, she said finally. No, we won't. I have a date tomorrow, remember? With Kira. Maybe we'll talk after that. Or maybe not. I'm feeling very open to possibilities right now. I hung up before she could respond. The house felt different now. Not like a home, but like a headquarters. I had intelligence, I had a plan forming, and I had something Eliza had forgotten I possessed. Patience. She'd played her hand too early, too publicly. Now it was my turn. Kira looked stunning across the candlelit table at Mistral, one of Boston's most exclusive restaurants. She'd chosen a deep red dress that complemented her auburn hair, and her smile had been radiant since I'd picked her up. I have to admit, she said, taking a sip of wine, I never thought this day would come. What day is that? The day Greg Keene finally noticed me as more than his wife's best friend. I studied her face in the flickering candlelight. How long have you been waiting? Honestly, about 15 years, since that Christmas party when you helped me with my car in the snow, and Eliza spent the entire night flirting with that client from her agency." She paused. "You were so kind, so attentive. I went home that night wondering what it would be like to be married to someone who actually noticed when you needed help." The waiter approached with our entrees, giving me time to process her words. 15 years. While I'd been obliviously playing the faithful husband, both my wife and her best friend had been living entirely different emotional lives. "What else did you notice?" I asked after the waiter left. Kira's expression grew more serious. "You really want to know?" "Everything." She took a breath. "Eliza's been complaining about you for years, Greg. To me, to our friends at work, to anyone who'd listen. She said you were boring, predictable, that you never surprised her anymore. While she was sleeping with Simon." Kira's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "You know about that?" "I know about a lot of things now. The question is, what did you know?" She set down her fork and met my eyes directly. "I suspected for about 6 months. The way she talked about him, the way she'd light up when he texted. Last month I saw them together at the Marriott downtown when she was supposed to be at a client meeting. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? And honestly, part of me hoped, well, that maybe if your marriage fell apart you might finally see me." Her honesty was refreshing after months of Eliza's lies. "And now? Now, I'm having dinner with the man I've been in love with for 15 years, and I'm terrified I'm just a rebound." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Kira, I won't lie to you. This situation is complicated, and I'm angry. But what I felt when I asked you out last night, what I'm feeling right now, that's not about revenge. That's about finally seeing clearly." Her smile returned, softer this time. "So what happens now? Now we finish dinner, and then I show you just how much I've been missing." We were interrupted by my phone buzzing. A text from Simon. "We need to talk. Meet me at Murphy's in an hour." I showed Kira the message. "Your former best friend? Apparently he wants to chat. Are you going?" I considered it. Murphy's was a dive bar near our old college campus, the kind of place where conversations could get heated without drawing attention. "Actually, yes. But first, I have a favor to ask you. Anything. I need you to post some photos from tonight on social media. Make sure we look happy, romantic. Tag the restaurant. Tag me." Understanding dawned in her eyes. "You want Eliza to see. I want everyone to see. If we're doing this, we're doing it right." Kira pulled out her phone and moved to sit beside me in the booth. "Smile, handsome." She took several photos, us toasting, sharing dessert, her laughing at something I'd whispered in her ear. In the photos, we looked like a couple who'd been together for years, comfortable and intimate. "Perfect," she said, posting them with the caption, "Best first date ever. Sometimes the best things are worth waiting for." Chuck new beginnings, Chuck finally happy. Within minutes, the likes and comments started pouring in. Eliza's work friends, our mutual acquaintances, even some of my colleagues. The narrative was already shifting. "Now," I said, signaling for the check, "I have a conversation to have with Simon. Be careful, Greg. He's not going to take this well." I kissed her forehead. "Don't worry about me. Worry about him." Murphy's hadn't changed since our college days. Dim lighting, sticky floors, and the smell of beer and regret. Simon was already there, nursing a whiskey at a corner table. He looked like hell. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his expensive shirt wrinkled. "You son of a bitch," he said as I sat down across from him. "Hello to you too, Simon. Rough night?" "Don't play games with me, Greg. What you did at the party asking out Kira like that, it was cruel." I signaled the bartender for a drink. "Cruel? My wife announces we're in an open relationship without consulting me, and I'm cruel for taking her at her word?" "You know what she meant. Do I? Because open relationship seems pretty clear to me. Open for both parties." Simon leaned forward, his voice dropping. This isn't about the open relationship bullshit. This is about you trying to hurt Eliza. Hurt her? I laughed, accepting my whiskey from the bartender. Simon, I just had the most wonderful evening with a woman who's intelligent, beautiful, and actually wants to spend time with me. How is that about hurting anyone? Because you're using Kira to get back at Eliza for what, Simon? For sleeping with my best friend for over a year? For lying to me every day? For buying lingerie with our joint credit card to wear for another man? The color drained from his face. How did you— No, I'm not stupid, Simon. Careless, maybe. Trusting, definitely. But not stupid. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the photos Kira had posted. This is what happiness looks like, by the way, in case you'd forgotten. He stared at the photo, his jaw working. You bastard. You're going to destroy everything. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just being open. Isn't that what we're all doing now? Simon's hand tightened around his glass. Eliza loves you, Greg. She made a mistake, but she loves you. Funny way of showing it. But don't worry about Eliza. Worry about yourself. What's that supposed to mean? I leaned back in my chair, studying him. Simon Harlow, star quarterback in college, successful sales director now, the kind of guy who'd always gotten everything he wanted without consequences. That was about to change. It means that actions have consequences, Simon. You want to play in the big leagues? Fine. But the big leagues have rules and penalties for breaking them. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you. See, you thought this was a game where only I could lose. My marriage, my happiness, my dignity. But games have multiple players, and now it's my turn. I stood up, leaving money on the table. Enjoy your drink, Simon, and give my regards to your wife when you get home. Janet, right? Sweet woman. I wonder what she'd think about your new openness. His face went white. Greg, don't what? Don't treat you the way you treated me? Don't be as honest with the people in your life as you were with the people in mine? I started to walk away, then turned back. Oh, and Simon? That photo Kira posted has already been shared 43 times. Eliza's seen it. So has Janet. Kira tagged everyone from the old crowd. Small world, isn't it? I left him sitting there, staring at his phone as the notifications rolled in. Outside, the cool night air felt cleansing. My phone buzzed with a text from Kira. How did it go? Better than expected. Are you free for coffee tomorrow morning? I have some ideas for our second date. I'd love that. Greg? Yeah? Thank you for tonight, all of it. I smiled, typing back, thank you for waiting. As I drove home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months, anticipation. Not for revenge, but for possibility. Eliza had opened a door she couldn't close, and I was finally walking through it. The game was just beginning. The next morning brought a series of increasingly frantic calls from Eliza, all of which I let go to voicemail. By the time I met Kira for coffee at a trendy cafe in Harvard Square, social media was buzzing with speculation about our relationship and Eliza's announcement. You look pleased with yourself, Kira observed as I sat down with my espresso. I slept better last night than I have in months. And Eliza? Spent the night at her sister's, according to her voicemail. Apparently she needs space to think about our new arrangement. Kira stirred her latte thoughtfully. Greg, I need to tell you something. About last night, after you left Murphy's. What about it? Simon called me. 3 times. He was drunk, angry, saying things about how you were using me to hurt Eliza, how I was being naive. I felt my jaw tighten. What did you tell him? The truth, that I'm a grown woman who makes her own decisions, and that maybe if he'd kept his hands off his best friend's wife, we wouldn't be having this conversation. How did he respond to that? Kira's expression darkened. He said some things that weren't very nice. About me, about you, about the situation. Then he said something that worried me. Which was? He said you'd regret making an enemy of him, that you had no idea who you were messing with. I considered this while sipping my coffee. Simon had always been competitive, but this sounded like something more serious. Kira, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Of course. Are you prepared for this to get ugly? Because it's going to. Eliza won't go quietly, and Simon clearly isn't planning to back down. Your friendship with Eliza is over. Our social circle is going to take sides, and there might be professional consequences for both of us. She reached across the table and took my hand. Greg, I've been watching you be unhappy for years. I've been unhappy for years. If there's a chance for us to be happy together, I'm willing to fight for it. Even if it means losing friends? What friends? The ones who knew about Eliza and Simon and never told you? The ones who encouraged her to humiliate you publicly? She shook her head. Those aren't friends worth keeping. My phone buzzed with a text from Ben. Emergency. Can you meet me at the office? Something's happened. I showed Kira the message. I have to go. Work crisis. Go. But Greg, be careful. I have a feeling Simon wasn't making idle threats last night. Ben was waiting in my office when I arrived, looking more nervous than I'd ever seen him. What's the emergency? I asked, closing the door behind me. Someone tried to hack into your work computer last night. Sophisticated attempt, but our security caught it. The IP address traces back to Simon's company. I sat down heavily in my chair. He's trying to find dirt on me. That's what I figured. But Greg, there's more. I did some digging of my own into Simon's company systems. Nothing illegal, just public records and social media analysis. He's in trouble. What kind of trouble? Ben pulled out a folder. Financial trouble. His sales numbers have been declining for months. He's behind on his mortgage, and his credit cards are maxed out. I think he's been using his relationship with Eliza to cope with stress, and now that it's blown up, he's panicking. Panicking how? I think he might be skimming from his company. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger an audit, but enough to keep up his lifestyle. If that comes out, he's not just fired. He's facing criminal charges. I leaned back in my chair, processing this information. Simon wasn't just angry about losing Eliza, he was desperate. There's something else, Ben continued. I checked the security footage from your neighborhood for the past few months. Simon's car has been parked in various locations around your house at least twice a week, sometimes for hours. Surveillance? Or stalking. Greg, I think you need to be careful. Desperate people do stupid things. As if summoned by our conversation, my phone rang. Simon. Put it on speaker, Ben whispered. I answered. Hello, Simon. We need to talk, face to face, tonight. I think we said everything we needed to say last night. No, we didn't. And if you don't meet with me, you're going to regret it. Is that a threat? It's a fact. 7 p.m., the parking lot behind the old gym on Commonwealth. Come alone. The line went dead. Ben stared at me. You're not actually going, are you? Of course I'm going, but not alone. I called Kira. How do you feel about a little surveillance work tonight? What kind of surveillance? I explained Simon's call and Ben's discoveries. I want you and Ben positioned where you can see and record everything. If this goes bad, I want evidence. Greg, this sounds dangerous. It might be. That's why I need backup I can trust. That evening, I arrived at the parking lot 10 minutes early. It was a rundown area behind an abandoned gym, poorly lit and isolated. Perfect for a conversation someone didn't want overheard. Ben and Kira were positioned in Ben's car across the street with a clear view and a camera with a telephoto lens. I'd tested the audio recorder in my jacket pocket twice. Simon arrived exactly on time, driving his red Mustang, the one he was 3 payments behind on, according to Ben's research. He got out slowly, looking around nervously. Glad you came, he said as I approached. What do you want, Simon? I want you to stop this nonsense with Kira and work things out with Eliza. That's not going to happen. Yes, it is. Because if it doesn't, I'm going to destroy you. I kept my voice calm. How exactly are you planning to do that? I know things about you, Greg. Things that could cost you your job, your reputation, everything. What things? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The Henderson account. The one where you allegedly saved the company $2 million? I know what really happened there. My blood ran cold. The Henderson account had been a major win for our company, and my handling of it had earned me a promotion and a substantial bonus. But there had been some gray areas in how I'd negotiated the deal. You're bluffing. Am I? I know about the kickbacks, Greg. The under-the-table payments that made that deal possible. I have documentation. You have nothing. I have emails, photos, bank records. His smile widened. Amazing what people will sell for the right price. I felt the trap closing around me. What do you want? I want you to go home to your wife, end this thing with Kira, and pretend last week never happened. In exchange, I keep my mouth shut about your creative accounting practices. And if I don't? Then by Monday morning, copies of everything I have will be on your boss's desk. The IRS will have an anonymous tip, and your career will be over. I stared at him for a long moment. Then I started laughing. What's so funny? You are. You think you're the only one who knows how to do research? I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo. Recognize this? It was a picture of Simon entering a hotel with a woman who wasn't Eliza or his wife. Where did you get that? The same place I got these. I scrolled through more photos. Simon with different women. Simon taking money from a cash register at his office. Simon's car parked outside a bookie's house. You've been busy, haven't you, Simon? The affairs, the embezzlement, the gambling debts. How much do you owe Tony Marconi? His face went white. How do you know about Tony? I know a lot of things. For instance, I know that you've been stealing from your company to pay gambling debts and using your relationship with my wife as an escape from the pressure. I know your wife Janet has been asking questions about your late nights and mysterious expenses. And I know that Tony Marconi doesn't like it when people don't pay their debts on time. Simon's hands were shaking now. What do you want? I want you to leave my wife alone. I want you to stay away from me and Kira. And I want you to disappear from my life completely. And if I don't? I smiled. Then Janet gets copies of everything I have. So does your boss. So does Tony Marconi, along with information about exactly how much company money you've been using to pay him. You bastard! No, Simon. I'm just a guy who's tired of being played for a fool. The difference between us is that when I gather information, I make sure it's accurate. I started walking back to my car, then turned around. Oh, and Simon, those Henderson account documents you think you have? They're forgeries. Expensive ones, but forgeries nonetheless. I never took kickbacks because I never needed to. I'm just good at my job. But the person who sold them to you? They're going to be very interested to know that you tried to use fabricated evidence for blackmail. I left him standing in the parking lot, staring at his phone as he realized how thoroughly he'd been outplayed. Back in Ben's car, Kira was grinning. Did you get all of that? Ben held up the camera. Every word, every gesture. If he tries anything, we have him dead to rights. What now? Kira asked. Now we go home and wait for Simon to make his next move. But something tells me he's going to be too busy dealing with his own problems to bother us much longer. My phone buzzed with a text from Eliza. We need to talk. I'm ready to end this open relationship experiment. I showed the message to Kira. What should I tell her? Tell her, Kira said, that some experiments can't be undone. I typed back, sorry, but I'm not interested in closing what you opened. I'm quite happy with the new arrangement. Her response came immediately. This isn't over, Greg. No, I said to Kira and Ben. It's not. But the next phase is going to be very different from what she's expecting. The game was escalating, but for the first time since this all began, I felt like I was winning. 2 weeks later, the fallout was spectacular. Simon had disappeared, not literally but socially. Word had somehow leaked about his financial troubles and multiple affairs, and his wife Janet had filed for divorce. His company had launched an investigation into discrepancies in his accounts, and he'd taken a sudden leave of absence. Eliza, meanwhile, had tried everything from tears to threats to win me back, but I'd remained unmoved. She'd moved in with her sister temporarily, claiming she needed time to figure things out. Kira and I had been seen together at restaurants, movies, and social events throughout the city. The gossip mill was working overtime, but the narrative had shifted in our favor. We were the couple who'd found love after betrayal, while Eliza and Simon were the cheaters who'd destroyed their own lives. "I still can't believe how quickly everything changed," Kira said as we walked through Boston Common on a crisp Saturday afternoon. "That's the thing about lies," I replied. "They're only powerful as long as they stay hidden. Once the truth comes out, they collapse pretty quickly." "Speaking of truth, there's something I need to tell you." I stopped walking. "What?" "I may have had a small role in Simon's downfall." "What kind of role?" Kira looked slightly guilty. "Remember how I said he called me that night after Murphy's? Well, he was drunk and angry, and he said some things about his gambling debts and money problems, things he probably shouldn't have shared. And I may have mentioned those things to a few people who knew Janet, people who worked at his company, not maliciously, just conversationally." I stared at her for a moment, then started laughing. "You magnificent, devious woman. Are you angry?" "Angry? I'm impressed. Remind me never to get on your bad side." We continued walking, hand in hand, when my phone rang. Eliza. "Don't answer it," Kira said. "No, I should. She's been calling less frequently. This might be important. Greg, please, we need to meet." "Eliza, we've been over this. We're done." "No, you don't understand. Something's happened. Something bad." There was genuine fear in her voice. "What kind of something?" "I can't talk about it over the phone. Please, just meet me, one last time. I'll explain everything." I looked at Kira, who shrugged. "Your choice, but I'm coming with you." "Fine. Where?" "The Starbucks on Newberry Street. 1 hour." Eliza was already there when we arrived, sitting in a corner booth with dark circles under her eyes and her usually perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked like she'd aged 5 years in 2 weeks. "Thank you for coming," she said as we sat down across from her. "What's this about, Eliza?" She glanced nervously around the cafe, then leaned forward. "It's about Simon. He's lost it, Greg. Completely." "What do you mean?" "After everything fell apart, after Janet left him and his company started investigating, he became obsessed with the idea that you were responsible for everything. I was responsible for exposing the truth. He doesn't see it that way. He thinks you orchestrated some elaborate revenge plot to destroy his life." Kira leaned forward. "What exactly are you trying to tell us, Eliza?" "He's been following you, both of you, taking pictures, making notes about your routines, your schedules. He's convinced that if he can find some way to hurt Greg, he can get his life back." I felt a chill run down my spine. "How do you know this?" "Because he called me last night, drunk, rambling, talking about how he was going to make things right. He said he knew where you lived, where you worked, where you went on dates. He said he had a plan." "What kind of plan?" Eliza's voice dropped to a whisper. "He said he was going to hurt Kira, that if you cared about her, you'd give him what he wanted." Kira's face went pale. "What does he want?" "He wants Greg to confess to framing him. He wants Greg to take responsibility for destroying his marriage and his career. And he wants you," she looked at me, "to give me another chance." "That's insane," I said. "I know. That's why I'm here. Greg, I know I hurt you. I know I made terrible choices, and I know you'll probably never forgive me. But I can't let Simon hurt innocent people because of my mistakes. Where is he now? I don't know. He hangs up when I try to call him back, and he's not at his apartment. But Greg, he sounded dangerous. I pulled out my phone and called Ben. Ben, I need you to check the security cameras around my house and Kira's apartment building. Look for Simon's car or anyone who might be watching. On it. Should I call the police? Not yet, but be ready to. I hung up and looked at Eliza. Why are you helping us? Because whatever I did to you, you didn't deserve this. And Kira definitely doesn't deserve to be threatened by a man who's having a breakdown. Kira reached across the table and took Eliza's hand. Thank you. I know this can't be easy. It's not, but it's the right thing to do. My phone rang. Ben. Greg, you need to get home, now. Simon's car has been parked across from your house for the past 3 hours, and I just saw him get out with what looked like a crowbar. Call the police, now. Already done. They're on their way. I stood up. Eliza, go to your sister's and stay there. Kira, you're coming with me. Greg, maybe we should wait for the police. No. If Simon's at my house, he's destroying evidence I need. Evidence that proves what he's been doing. We drove to my house in tense silence, arriving just as 2 police cars pulled up. Simon's Mustang was parked across the street, empty. The front door of my house was standing open. Sir, you need to stay back, one of the officers said as I approached. This is my house. What's the situation? We're securing the premises now. There was a break-in, but the suspect appears to have fled when he saw our units approaching. Another officer emerged from my house. Sir, you're going to want to see this. Inside, my home office had been ransacked. My computer was smashed, files were scattered everywhere, and someone had spray-painted "liar" across my desk in red paint. Any idea who might have done this? The first officer asked. I explained about Simon, the affair, and his recent threats. The officers took notes and assured me they'd put out a bolo for his car. In the meantime, one of them said, you might want to consider staying somewhere else tonight. If this individual is as unstable as you describe, he might come back. After the police left, Kira and I surveyed the damage. It was extensive, but mostly cosmetic. More importantly, all my important files were backed up in the cloud, and the evidence I'd gathered about Simon was stored safely elsewhere. He's completely lost it, Kira said, looking at the destruction. Good. Desperate people make mistakes. Greg, this isn't a game anymore. He broke into your house. He threatened to hurt me. We need to take this seriously. She was right. This had moved beyond social revenge into something much more dangerous. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is just the beginning. Give me what I want, or Kira pays the price. I showed the message to Kira, whose face went white. That's it, I said, dialing 911. This just became a police matter. But even as I made the call, I knew this wasn't over. Simon had crossed a line from which there was no return, and now the stakes were higher than anyone's reputation or marriage. Now it was about survival. The police took the threat seriously, especially combined with the break-in. They assigned an officer to patrol my neighborhood and advised both Kira and me to vary our routines and stay alert. But I had a different plan. You want to use yourself as bait, Ben said when I explained my idea. We were sitting in his car outside Kira's apartment building, where she'd agreed to stay with friends for a few days. It's the only way to end this. Simon's spiraling, and he's going to keep escalating until someone gets hurt. Or until he hurts you. He won't. Simon's always been a coward when faced with real confrontation. He's counting on me being scared enough to give in to his demands. What if you're wrong? Then you and the police will have everything on record, and Simon will spend the next 10 years in prison. The plan was simple. I would meet Simon at a location of his choosing, but with backup position nearby and everything recorded. I'd let him make his demands, get his threats on tape, and then watch him self-destruct when he realized he had no leverage left. I sent a text to the number he'd used earlier. You want to talk? Fine, but it ends tonight. Name the place. His response came within minutes. Warehouse District, Pier 47, midnight. Come alone or the deal's off. Deal's on, I replied. Pier 47 was perfect from my perspective, isolated enough that Simon would feel safe, but with multiple vantage points for surveillance. Ben would be positioned with recording equipment, and I'd convinced Detective Morrison, who was handling the case, to have unmarked units nearby. "This is either very brave or very stupid," Kira said when I called to tell her the plan. "Probably both, but I'm tired of looking over my shoulder, and I'm tired of him threatening you." "Greg, what if he's armed?" "Then the police will handle it. But I don't think he is. Simon's not a killer, Kira. He's just a desperate man who's run out of options." At 11:45 p.m., I arrived at Pier 47. The warehouse district was dark and quiet, with only the distant sound of traffic and the harbor. Simon's car was already there, parked near the old loading dock. I could see him standing near the edge of the pier, silhouetted against the harbor lights. He looked smaller than I remembered, diminished by the weight of his desperation. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said as I approached. "Here I am. What do you want, Simon?" "I want my life back." "That's not something I can give you." He turned to face me, and I was shocked by his appearance. He'd lost weight, his clothes were disheveled, and his eyes had the wild look of someone who hadn't slept in days. "You destroyed everything," he said. "My marriage, my job, my reputation, all because you couldn't handle the fact that Eliza chose me." "Eliza didn't choose you, Simon. She chose to cheat. There's a difference. She loved me. She loved the excitement, the secret, the thrill of betraying her husband. When it became public, when there were consequences, she ran back to me begging for forgiveness. That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time she called you? When's the last time she offered to help you through this crisis you're facing?" His silence was answer enough. "Simon, you didn't lose your life because of me. You lost it because you made bad choices. The gambling, the embezzlement, the affairs, all of that was you." "I never embezzled anything." "Really? Then explain the discrepancies in your company accounts. Explain the cash withdrawals that coincidentally match your gambling losses." "How do you know about—" He stopped, realizing he'd just confirmed what I'd suspected. "Because desperate people leave trails, Simon. And you've been desperate for a long time." He reached into his jacket, and for a moment I tensed, thinking he might have a weapon. Instead, he pulled out a thick envelope. "I have photos," he said, "of you and Kira. Compromising photos." "No, you don't." "Yes, I do. I've been watching you for weeks. I know where you go, what you do. Simon, you've been watching us go to dinner, to movies, to walk in the park. Unless you consider holding hands and kissing goodnight to be compromising, you have nothing." "I have nothing." "You have nothing because there's nothing to have. Kira and I are two adults in a consensual relationship. There's no scandal there, no leverage." I could see him deflating as the reality of his situation sank in. "But you know what I do have?" I continued. "I have recordings of you threatening to hurt an innocent woman. I have evidence of your break into my house. I have documentation of your harassment and stalking. You can't prove any of that." "Can't I?" I pulled out my phone and played back his voice from our earlier conversation. "Give me what I want, or Kira pays the price." His face went white. "You recorded me?" "I recorded everything, Simon. Every threat, every demand, every admission of guilt. The police have copies of all of it." "The police?" As if on cue, Detective Morrison stepped out of the shadows, followed by two uniformed officers. "Simon Harlow, you're under arrest for breaking and entering, criminal harassment, and making terroristic threats." Simon's legs gave out, and he collapsed to his knees on the pier. This isn't how it was supposed to end. "No," I said, looking down at him as the officers cuffed him. "It was supposed to end with you getting away with betraying your best friend and destroying his marriage. But sometimes, Simon, the good guys win." As they led him away, he looked back at me one last time. "I really did love her, you know." "I know," I replied. "That's the saddest part of all." 3 months later, Kira and I were sitting in our favorite restaurant, not the expensive place where we'd had our first date, but a cozy Italian place that had become our spot. "Any word on Simon?" she asked. "Ben heard he took a plea deal, 2 years probation, restitution to his company, and a restraining order that keeps him away from both of us." "And Eliza?" "Moved to California, got a job with a marketing firm in San Diego. Her sister said she wanted a fresh start." Kira nodded. "Do you ever regret how it all played out?" I considered the question. I regret that it had to happen at all. I regret that 20 years of marriage ended the way it did. But I don't regret fighting back when I was betrayed, and I definitely don't regret finding you. Even though I was part of the revenge? Kyra, you were never part of the revenge. You were part of the healing. She smiled and reached across the table to take my hand. "So what now?" "Now we build something real, something honest, something that doesn't require games or manipulation or secrets." "Sounds boring," she said with a grin. "After the last few months, boring sounds perfect." As we walked home that night, hand in hand through the quiet Boston streets, I reflected on how dramatically my life had changed. 6 months ago, I'd been living a lie, married to a woman who was betraying me with my best friend. Now I was with someone who genuinely cared about me, someone who'd been willing to fight for our relationship when it mattered most. The revenge had been satisfying, but the real victory was what came after, the chance to build something better from the ashes of what had been destroyed. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes it's getting happy. But in this case, I'd managed to do both.